I've never been one to share a lot of wounds, and I think that probably stems from little girl, not to get into the story because I don't want to implant anything on your brains right now, but I started this theme, I'll show you. So then it came to nursing school. You know, a lot of happened in that period of time that I'm skipping over, but I was in my first year of nursing school, and I was doing the psychiatric rotation where, yes, they were still doing the ECT treatments on people. I was in a group therapy session as part of being a nursing student, and I was listening to I think the majority of the people in there were women talking about the divorce they had gone through or their different experiences. I pulled the psychologist aside afterwards, and I said, actually his name was Robert as well, and I said, what is the difference between, you know, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened to me. How come I'm not sitting there with the rest of these people? And he said, he planted another seed in my head, and he said that you just have really good coping skills. There was even one point that I tried to talk to a therapist about a lot of the stuff that I'd been through. I vaguely remember being in her office, and she pretty much told me there wasn't anything wrong with me. And thinking back to this not having the ability to share, I think that's where she got that impression, because I really wasn't telling her anything. And being the independent little girl that I was, still carrying around like I still am today, I'll show you, you know, but I can see them now as themes and patterns. I moved from that province to another province. I changed jobs. The moving was a really big thing for me. It was like I was always running away. Even in relationships, they start going sour, I'm going to run away. Moved to multiple cities, Savannah, Georgia, Virgin Islands, Seattle, San Diego, Hawaii, back here, knowing emotionally that I needed more skills to deal with what I'd been dealing with in all the years of nursing and absorbing everything that these patients were telling me, and always feeling like I was the one giving and being that independent person and nobody was giving back to me. Then who do you look at? You have to look at yourself to do that part of it, which leads me to here, which we're doing here, and I'm glad that I learned that I was the one that I always needed to do it, and I couldn't rely on anybody else. Aside from the emotional aspect, having everything bottled up inside me for years, it started showing up in physical pain, whether it was migraines, neck pain, back pain, hip pain, heel pain, toe pain, whatever pain there was, bladder pain. I could go on and on. So maybe sometimes I'd see a doctor and then they'd say, well, everything's okay, and then I'd be okay for a while. But then I started connecting the dots that there was this mind thing going on. And for the amount of papers that are up here on the wall, those are probably the amount of books that I wrote, that I read, with some really smart people in it. And so Wayne Dyer, Abraham Hicks, everybody's sounding familiar with everything. Deepak Chopra. I even saw the Dalai Lama when I was over there. Had a shaman, learned a lot of things from him. Could never meditate if my life depended on it because my mind wouldn't slow down enough. So I felt I was on a really good path, a really healthy path. But I just knew that there was so much more. And like the story I said the other day, I didn't want to be one of these patients in the bed, and be terminally ill and not have that chance to either live the life or at least have the mind that I needed to have. And to add to that, Alzheimer's, or Alzheimer's, like Robert calls it. My grandmother, 2 aunts, and I just kept thinking, I have a hard time remembering stuff. I'm really worried. I can't articulate things. I might not be able to tell as good a story. But I was like, I don't want to be that person that has no clue what's going on, not having figured it out before I get to that point. And I really think that this because it's going to clean up a lot of what's in my mind. It's going to clear out enough space that I won't actually end up getting it, if that makes sense. I found out from, like I mentioned before, about eutaptics from my friend Gary, who I met in 1974, and his family and my family, a lot of similar experiences. Like, we kind of lived across the tracks where we grew up, and we kind of had a lot of the roughness go on within our lives. So when he, last June, told me about this, I was like, how come I didn't hear about this? And I kind of heard about tapping through a friend that said, yeah, it doesn't work, so I didn't have an impression like some of you guys have had where you've experienced and it did kind of work, but it wasn't, the tapping or the faster EFT didn't even connect with me. It was the eutaptics part I had never really heard about. And so, and yeah, I don't know if you recall the conversation with Gary and I when he was driving and I was calling him to keep him awake, and he was like, I was in a trance, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. And it's like, Karen, have you heard of eutaptics? So that's led me to looking online. And I can't really remember the way he described Robert, but now I can understand why he described him in the manner that he did, because he's just like the rest of us, only he figured it out. And he said, just listen to him. Don't like pay attention to what he's saying. Don't get an impression from him or anything like that. And it was his point that he was trying to make is he's just like you and I. And that was the thing that I think I could relate to him, like David has mentioned, or whoever else it was, that he's just one of us that figured it out. And so it continued from there to the tap-alongs, to the program, to the online class. But being here in person, I enjoyed the 5 Saturdays with Robert and whoever else was on the videos for the online, but this tops it all. Like-minded people, that's the key to surround yourself. Almost did it. So I appreciate all you guys. It's been a pleasure to meet you, and I especially appreciate Robert and everything he stands for and everything he's showing us.